Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, here to talk about a very tough fight coming up between unbeaten former light middleweight champion Sergio Dzinziruk, and he is taking on a fighter that many consider to be pound for pound the best in boxing, and that's Sergio Martinez. Understand there are differences of opinion, but there is a group out there that believes that Martinez would give Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao all they could handle, and that Martinez might be more multifaceted than Floyd Mayweather and might have boxing skills that Manny Pacquiao lacks. Now, before I get into that, I'd just like to talk about a structural bias that's in your favor. Why sometimes it seems like I'm taking an inordinate number of underdogs. I don't think I am, but some have suggested that I'm taking underdogs. And my point to you, just looking at star fighters and looking at recent matches like the Bernard Hopkins, John Pascal recent fight where Hopkins was an underdog, and looking at guys on BoxRec like Miguel Cotto, who are ranked number one by BoxRec at 154. Just understand it's my theory that underdogs at the top level, in other words, in top level fights, underdogs will win one out of every 3 or 4 matches. In other words, your underdogs have at least a 25% chance, 25, I'd say to 33% chance in general, as a general rule, of winning the fight outright. And so many times the casinos have the odds get away from them, and you're seeing odds of greater than minus 400 for the favorite. Just take a look, for example, at what I consider to be absurd odds on Manny Pacquiao over Sugar Shane Mosley in a fight, quite frankly, between two boxing Hall of Famers. My point to you is you should view any odds above minus 400 with suspicion. Take Miguel Cotto. Cotto is viewed as the best on BoxRec, at 140. Forget 147, forget 154 where he is now. At 140, Cotto got knocked down by Ricardo Torres. Cotto was badly hurt by DeMarcus Corley. By the way, these fights are up on YouTube. At 147, Cotto lost to Antonio Margarito. Cotto lost to Manny Pacquiao at 145. Cotto had challenging fights that went the distance against Shane Mosley and Joshua Clottey, right? My point to you is even a fighter like Miguel Cotto, big name, big draw, very high ranking, in fact, the highest ranking on BoxRec for his division at 154, has had his share of tough moments and has had his share of fights that have gone the distance as he has fought top competition. And understand, I say that about Miguel Cotto because Cotto, of course, sports a 75% knockout ratio. So, my point to you is all we're doing here is trying to assess the probability of outcomes, right? That's what gambling is. It's just like investing in stock. Many of you have noticed that I write stock articles for seekingalpha.com. It's the same principle. All we're trying to do is to figure out whether a fighter is overvalued or undervalued. And then, of course, in Miguel Cotto's case, there's some other wrinkles, right? We know, for example, that Cotto is prone to get cut. We saw that in the Joshua Clottey fight. We know that Cotto is a inverted southpaw, right? He's fighting out of an orthodox stance, but his left hand is actually his lead hand, right? We know that that makes him vulnerable to certain types of opponents, and so you could literally take the odds in a Cotto fight, chop them up into whether Cotto wins by knockout, whether Cotto wins by decision, whether his opponent has a chance at a knockout or a decision, and you could further tilt the odds in your favor. That's all we're doing, right? And so, if I'm doing my job, if I'm properly assessing fights, I believe that I need to pick the underdog 25 to 33% of the time at least. keep in mind too, fighters with a puncher's chance, in my opinion, really good, highly skilled knockout punchers, just that fact alone would give them a 20% chance of winning the fight. Um, Keep in mind, too, since we're talking about probabilities, I believe if Floyd Mayweather were to fight Manny Pacquiao 10 times, I believe both guys would win some of those matches, right? Just because a fighter wins a match on a given day doesn't mean he would win that match on every other day. And so underdogs do have a chance. I do feel that casinos get it wrong on occasion. They're really pricing crowd psychology. In fact, they don't get it wrong. They're accurately reading the crowd. And what we're trying to do, quite frankly, is to beat the crowd. We're trying to beat conventional wisdom. All right, let's talk about this fight. Sergio Martinez against Serhiy Dzinziruk. This is an awfully close fight. Now, I have a theory, and it's not a widely held theory, but it's a theory that I discussed in my Miguel Cotto versus Manny Pacquiao video. In fact, it's the reason why I picked Manny Pacquiao in that fight. Just as you have a dominant hand, right? Most of us are left-handed or we're right-handed. You also have a dominant foot, right? You're either left-footed or right-footed. NFL kickers, for example, kickers in the National Football League, they either kick with their left or their right foot. They don't kick with both feet, right? And so my point to you is this. If your stance is unorthodox, in other words, if you're actually right-handed and you're fighting out of a left-hand stance, where your right, instead of being your backup hand, with your jab hand being your non-dominant hand, let's say you're reversed. So your right hand, and you're right-handed, is actually your lead. And your left, even though you're fighting out of the southpaw stance, is your non-dominant hand. Then I believe that if you're fighting a fighter who has superior lateral movement, who is an elite fighter who's going to move around the ring, I believe that you're going to have a very hard time catching up with your opponent, because as you go forward from your unnatural inverted stance, you're going to have to untangle your feet just to keep up with your opponent. So, take a look at Sugar Ray Leonard against a righty fighting as a southpaw, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, in one of the biggest fights in history. You will see that Ray Leonard forces Hagler, who was an absolute killer in close. He forces Hagler to follow him around the ring. Hagler looks mechanical. He looks methodical as he does it because he has to untangle himself to do it. And of course, that's the secret to the fight. It's Ray Leonard pulling Hagler out of his stance, his converted stance, right? His southpaw stance when he's really a righty. In other words, the secret to Marvin Hagler was his power hand, his dominant hand was his lead hand, not his backup hand, right? Hagler is following Ray Leonard around the ring, and of course Ray Leonard is taking him to school during that fight. He's throwing combinations, then he's moving, because Leonard figured out that Hagler's disadvantage was his ability to move and keep up with Ray Leonard. I'll give you a more recent fight. People don't realize that one of my favorite fighters, Chad Dawson, is actually inverted. So Chad Dawson against Jean Pascal. You'll notice in that fight, for example, Pascal is on the move. Pascal was fighting an ambush type of fight. He came in, he would hit Chad Dawson, he would then leave. He would back out. And Dawson, who fights inverted, right? Um, had to come forward to try to catch up with him. If you look at the film of the fight, it looks like Chad Dawson is carrying luggage around with him in the ring. Now, I have looked long and hard at Dzinziruk's films. And let me just say, now I haven't seen this online, but we're here talking about my opinion on this fight. I believe that Dzinziruk, who does sport a better than 50% knockout ratio and who does have a Felix Sturm level jab, a Larry Holmes level jab, it's one of the best jabs in the business. I don't believe that he is a true southpaw. I've looked at him. It looks to me, and he is a great athlete and he is taller than Sergio Martinez, but it looks to me like his lead hand, his right jab, fights out of a southpaw stance. Doesn't mean he's a southpaw. It looks to me like his lead hand is his dominant hand. It's almost impossible to beat him up close. He has a European-style defense. It's a Andre Kotelnik type defense. It's almost impenetrable. He doesn't leave you a lot to hit as he fires that jab across and hits you in the face. Now, all that as it is, I like Sergio Martinez in this fight because I believe Martinez can fight like Ray Leonard. I believe Martinez is like Andre Ward. He's a guy who speaks many boxing languages. I believe Martinez understands that he cannot allow himself to get hit by Dzinziruk's jab. I believe this fight will be decided early on. You'll tell whether it's going Martinez's way just by counting the number of jabs that Dzinziruk misses. If Dzinziruk is missing a lot of jabs, and if Martinez is moving around the ring like Ray Leonard, forcing Dzinziruk out of his tight stance, forcing Dzinziruk to reach for him with his lead hand unsuccessfully, right? Leaving himself open for counters, forcing Dzinziruk to throw his left hand, which he has cocked because he's in a southpaw stance, forcing Dzinziruk to rely on his non-dominant hand, right? The one that should be his dominant hand in a southpaw stance. If you see Dzinziruk reaching with his left at Sergio Martinez, this fight is over. Martinez will have broken him down. Dzinziruk, I do not believe, can fight a highly mobile opponent showing a lot of lateral movement who's going to deny Dzinziruk the ability to land his jab, right? How I would structure the bet, because keep in mind, we're trying to beat the odds. Since Dzinziruk hasn't had a recent KO, since if you look at his last 4 fights, the one KO he did have was in the 11th round a few fights ago. I do not believe that Dzinziruk can knock out Sergio Martinez. The bet I'm recommending is, as your base bet, take Martinez, and I believe he's the favorite in the fight. Take Martinez to win this fight, straddled against Dzinziruk by decision, right? There is a possibility that Martinez gets flustered by that jab, just like every opponent of Dzinziruk's has been. Take a look at the Dawson tape, which is online. Take a look at the Joel Julio tape, which is online. There is a possibility that Martinez finds himself at the end of the jab. I think that is remote, but I believe Dzinziruk's only chance of winning this fight would be by decision, right? So, to sum up, I like the favorite here. I like Martinez as the base bet to win the fight, straddled against Dzinziruk by decision. I believe Martinez gives Dzinziruk his first loss. Now, me picking the favorite here doesn't mean that I won't pick underdogs in other matches. The point is simply we take this fight by fight. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here on YouTube. And, of course, visit us at gamblersadvisory.com and on YouTube at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.